dominate by doing nothing. That is the core message of Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and that is what I'm going to be talking about now. The Art of War is a often cited book that is, well, often misunderstood. Perhaps one individual that misunderstood it the most was Mao Zedong. Another individual that misunderstood it, perhaps I would say not the most, but certainly second in line to the most, would be Karl von Clausewitz, author of On War, often considered to be the antithesis to Sun Tzu. Let us get into this. So, in order to understand the book, The Art of War, one must first understand the Taoist worldview. Why do I say this? Oftentimes when we think of a warfare, when we think of a book that tells you how to engage in warfare, particularly for those of you that have been influenced by the doctrine of NATO, for example, we tend to think about surgical strikes, surgical, minimal civilian losses, minimal losses on one's own side, and so on and so forth. Highly precise, very technological means of warfare. And when you read The Art of War, you don't find this. And many people are often puzzled to say, well, hang on, it's recommending that we do moves that are more or less going to kill you. So what is going on here? Well, this is what's going on here. The book was written in the context of a Taoist worldview. Taoism is a rich worldview with its own cosmology, and there's various core concepts. Obviously, I can't get into it all in one video, but just you have to be able to wrestle with these various concepts before you can actually understand and appreciate what it is that Matua Sun Tzu is trying to tell you in his marvelous text, The Art of War. The reality is modern day criticisms of the art of war are arrogant. They're arrogant because they start from a place where their presuppositions and their values are entirely different to that of Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is not interested in minimal civilian casualties. This is going to sound horrific, I know, because of the age that we live in. But Sun Tzu is not interested in minimal civilian casualties and things like that. Sun Tzu is interested in honor. That is what he's interested in. He's interested in the honor, what my people would call mana, of his nation, of his people. And it is that which is driving everything in terms of his conclusions. He is not thinking in terms of Geneva Convention, hence the need for surgical strikes, which is why he prescribes blatant war crimes. So, when we get into the art of war, we must understand the concept of Tao. What the hell is Tao? So, it's a rather hard to understand thing, but basically it means the way or the road. It literally means the way. And Tao refers to how things develop naturally, the way nature moves along. Basically, the best way to understand the concept of Tao is this idea that the universe is constantly in motion, and that this act of motion is an amoral process. Yes, it brings a lot of suffering. The motion of a tiger is bad for the gazelle, for example. But nonetheless, it happens anyway. And so that is what essentially Tao is. It is the motion of the universe. It's sort of one way to understand it. Now, I know some of you nerds are going to get in the comments and say, actually, Tao was this and this is... I get it. I know it's complex, but I'm trying to simplify and, make the concept bite-sized, essentially. Then, the second concept that we need to understand in order to understand Sun Tzu is dare. So you have Tao, which is the motion of the universe, and you have De. And what is De? De is power. And so De results from an individual living and cultivating Tao. What the hell does that mean? Okay, so in other words, the lion gets his power from pouncing on the zebra. Okay, that's an example. So, how does the zebra get his get his power? He begins to set traps for the lion. And so, in understanding the motion of the universe and studying the environment around him, he then can come up with a strategy by which he can gain De, that is power. You see what I'm saying? And so this is a fundamental concept you need to understand in order to understand Sun Tzu. Next we have, excuse my Mandarin, terrible. I would love to learn the language one day soon. I'm trying to read and self-taught, trying to be self-taught, but nonetheless it's a very difficult language to learn, much as I'm fascinated with it and love it so much. So for any of you that are Mandarin speakers, please forgive my butchering of this word. Ziran. The next concept is Ziran, and it's a central concept and value in Taoism. It's basically a way of flowing with Tao. So on the one hand, you have the motion of the universe, and that's Tao. And then you have De, which is your power. And what is that? You get that from studying the motions of the universe. And Ziran comes from the ability to move with the motions of the universe. So an example would be nomads that migrate with the seasons. Okay? So that is Ziran. And finally, the next thing is Wu Wei. Again, please forgive my butchering of the language. Wu Wei. So what is Wu Wei? Wu Wei is a very interesting concept. It's a concept that is entirely negative. Wu Wei is the act of doing nothing, of ceasing to engage. And so an example being that if the zebra is always hidden, why? Because he exhibits De, that is, he studies the motion of the universe. And second, that he engages in Ziran, meaning that he goes with the seasons, he moves with the material conditions, if you will. Then he has the ability to conceal himself indefinitely. And what does that do to the tiger? Well, he is engaging in Wu Wei, meaning he starves the tiger to death. So those are the four fundamental concepts that are informing Sun Tzu in The Art of War. And if you can wrap your head around those four fundamental concepts, in addition to the fact that what he's defending is not so much people, or not so much territorial integrity, or any sort of single polity, but what he's defending, or what he's interested in defending, is honor. The pride and honor of his house, of his kingdom. That is what he's interested in. His thinking, Sun Tzu, is basically this. You and I one day will be worm food. You might be young today, but tomorrow you will be old. You might be handsome today, but tomorrow you will be toothless. You might be able to walk today, but tomorrow you will be lame. What is the one thing that matters above all else? Family. That is what matters. It's the family name that goes forward into eternity. It is the family name that ought to be respected or feared. And there's a relationship between fear and respect. And that carrying forth of the honor of your house, your family, of your kingdom, of your nation, forward into eternity, is what Sun Tzu is protecting when he talks about military theory. Not a polity, not a king, not a people, not even to a certain extent territorial integrity, or meaning a border. What he's interested in is the name, and what it invokes when people hear it. And within that context, he is engaging with these four Taoist concepts. I hope that helps in understanding The Art of War by Sun Tzu.